Hello, everyone. Big crowd today. Woohoo! Howdy, howdy. Good seeing everyone from our class. Good seeing friends of the class, outside of class. Welcome to today's Limestone Conversation. AR, you want to take over?
Hey y'all, thank you so much for being here. I just wanted to offer a few quick notes before we get started. First, this is our last author visit of the semester. So it's pretty special. We really appreciate you joining us on this rainy evening. Even though it is our last author visit, we still have two more events this semester. So this Thursday from 4 to 6 on the Highland campus is our final draft celebration. And that is just where we get to celebrate our students and all of our hard work. There will be some snacks, some drinks, and we hope that you just come hang out with us. On Monday, May 19th, so the Monday right after the semester officially ends from 6:30 to 8:30, we're going to have our Rio Review release party. So you probably know the creative writing department has our very own literary journal, the Rio Review. So we're going to come celebrate both the authors that were chosen to be in the Rio Review, as well as all of the hard work that the Rio Review editors have done all semester. So two celebratory moments coming up. We hope that you can join us for those. I'm about to turn this over to Professor Garcia. If you are not in Professor Garcia's class, we're totally crashing Professor Garcia's class right now. So thank you for letting us do that. Uh, um, and he is going to introduce our guest of honor for the evening. But just a few quick reminders. Um, if you're able to turn your camera on, we'd love it. But not every day is a camera on day, and we get that. So, we'd love to see your faces, but if not, it's totally cool. You are welcome to be here. We do also ask that you remain muted. That just helps us limit some of the chaos, some of the noise. We will have a Q&A portion of this evening, which I'm really excited about. And we ask that you drop those questions in the chat. I'll be looking at the chat. Professor Garcia will be looking at the chat. And so we're going to do our best to make sure your questions get answered. So it really help us if you could do those things. Um, I think that's all I've got for now. Oh, no, I did want to say one more thing. So I'm also an instructor in the department. I don't think I said that. I'm A.R. Rogers. And we're in the final 2 weeks of the semester. It is crunch time. And if you are one of our students, I just want you to know there's support for you. Your professors are here for you. Your advisors are here for you. There's a counseling center at ACC. You get free sessions. And also, there is a learning lab on every single campus. So if you need a little extra academic support, uh, um, they're there for you. And they can also meet you online. So if you're really feeling the pressure, feeling the stress, please know that there are so many resources at your fingertips. All you got to do is ask. All right, that's all I have. Thank you again for being here. I'm gonna turn it back to you, Professor Garcia.
Woo! Awesome. Thank you so much, Professor Rogers. Let's go back to my slides really quick. Woohoo. And get to introducing our very special guest, SG Huerta. Let's go. Um, Welcome everyone, and everyone outside of the class. By the way, I'm so glad y'all are here today. It's going to be so fun. SG Huerta, ella, is a queer Chicanx writer and organizer. They are a Roots Wounds Awards Fellow, a Tin House alum, and a poetry editor for Abode Press. SG is the author of the nonfiction chapbook Good Grief from Fifth Wheel Press in 2025. Their poetry collection, Burns, is forthcoming in Sandra's publication in 2026. Their work has appeared in Honey Literary, The Offing, Infideliza Review, and elsewhere. Find them at sghuertawriting.com or in Texas with their partner and cats working toward liberation for oppressed peoples everywhere. We love to hear it. We love to see it. SG Huerta, thank you so much for being with us. Let me go back over here. Let me stop to share. Woohoo! Bu- 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 Can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah. Am I good to?
Yes. Yeah, welcome, welcome.
Awesome.
So happy you're here. We work together a lot outside of this classroom, obviously. So I'm so happy to have you here and get to show my students and everyone else how awesome you are. Because to me, like you're like a rock star. You do so many cool things. You're one of Texas's most wanted in my eyes. So in so many ways that we can explore, we can all explore. I'm just really happy you're here, and I'm really happy to get to talk to you. Um, we're going to start with a reading, I believe. Awesome.
Yeah.
Let's get to it.
Thank you so much for the very kind intro. Thank y'all for having me. Um, yeah, super excited to get into it. This, I also just have to say, was like the vibe of the Zoom room was immaculate when I logged on. So thank you for that too. Cool. So I'm gonna read an excerpt from my novel in progress. Right now, it's called a Haunted Latino Individual, like with the at symbol. So to give y'all some context about it, it's about a trans Chicano guy named Angel in a small made-up town in South Texas called Epifania. So he leaves without a word when he turns 18 to transition, but eventually he has to come back to take care of his dad for his mental health. And his dad eventually does die by suicide. This is very early in the novel, so I'm not spoiling anything for y'all. But the dad's ghost may or may not still be wandering around Epifania. So this first section is from when Angel first kind of runs away from his home and ends up somewhere else in Texas. So 1998. Though San Marcos is a relaxed river town with the most relaxed college kids, I find my speed of life is still slower than this small town. So slow, I accidentally bumped into this white kid walking past the tap room downtown. Fucking Mexican, he sneered. I shook it off, but soon I got swallowed into my own subconscious. My mother telling me not to act so Mexican. But what did that even mean? I'd read Papi's history books about the guerras and the tratados violados, the historia that so heavily favored these invaders. I'd lived to adulthood in Epifania, mostly only seeing other Mexicans. The word Mexican feels like home, but maybe one I don't deserve. Is that diaspora? Or arbitrary imperial borders? I see the word Mexican and my identity feels inseparable. I learned the word trans within a week of living here, and I'm disturbed down to my bone marrow, disturbed at how it washes over me like a baptism. Maybe my bones aren't trapped somewhere they don't belong, or maybe they are. Have you ever seen a trans Mexican? I haven't or hadn't. Do you know how hard it is to set your own example? I was already my own mother and my father's caretaker. I feel I'm on my way to becoming a blueprintless man. So there's a bit of a time jump here. So we're in 2005, right after the father dies. The only funeral home within 100 miles of Epifania wavered in the July heat. I hoped it was a mirage up until the moment I stepped through the doors. Buenos dias, the director greeted me. ¿Tienes una cita? Ahora no. I called a little while ago. My dad is the one who just shot. The woman, Paula, according to her chip name tag, glared at me and nodded her head towards a family of mourners trailing out of the side chapel. Perdón, he just died. I guess I have to bury him now. Oh, it's you. Come on, she said, leading me to a room with a large table and a glass display of crucifixes, virgenes, military embellishments for caskets. I didn't realize you were his daughter. You look... Buzzed head, dad's sombrero and boots. Different than I remember from your abuela's service. Can't anyone be trans or, God forbid, non-conforming in peace? Navigating ignorance and grief at the same time was such an experience. No one else is coming with you to help with preparations? Nope, just me. What about your Theo? She asked. Just me. What's the cheapest option you have? Ay, mija, if you're worried about cost, I can help you out. You come from good people. Paula pulled out a catalog I imagine was once crisp and glossy. While she talked about options and payment plans with minimal interest rates, that's what she meant by helping me out. I retreated into my own mind again. A cockroach crawled along the inside of the display case, and it stopped on some religious insignia, and I couldn't help but laugh. Paula looked up from the horrid magazine and glared at me. I covered my face with my hands and let out a sob to cover the inappropriate laugh. I know llores. What happened to Mateo was a tragedy, a real tragedy. I spend most of my time with dead people, and even I choked up seeing him like that. But he's not in that mangled body. No, he's your personal angelito now. Mira, let's pick out a beautiful white casket, fit for our angelito, Mateo. I nodded and put my hands down. I was crying for real now, and I couldn't stop. My own personal angel. I signed up for the predatory payment plan, not expecting to live to see it through. The monthly payment, nearly the same amount I used to pay for testosterone every quarter. As I stood up to leave, Paula handed me a crucifix with the gold coating flaking off to reveal cheap plastic. Then take this on me and put it above your bed. And take this for good measure. In my other hand, she shoved a tiny bottle of holy water with the funeral home's tree logo. I assumed it was a praying the gay away gesture, but hey, at least I had my own personal angel. So we're jumping last section a little bit, maybe a week or so, in 2005 still. The first time I drove into town after Papi's funeral was the first time I felt like a man. I nearly had a breakdown, practiced damming my tears from others while looking for the non-existent almond milk section at HEB when I caught sight of my dad's favorite vanilla coffee creamer. The simplest things can set off grief. I noticed someone walking in my direction, cart full for a likely alive family, wearing a shirt that read, Que en paz descanse, Mateo. I let go of the fridge door handle. Excuse me, senora, I said, taking off my hat. Where did you get that shirt? Oh, it's the saddest story. Mateo was a beloved member of our parish. He helped fix the tiling and even planted a garden around La Virgen. He passed away in his home last month. We just made these shirts in our Bible study today. He fucking shot himself, I said. Where was this person, any of these church-going people at the funeral? Excuse me? I think Mateo would want us to be honest about how he died. He never lied to anyone, even when it was probably better to, I said. Were they too ashamed of his manner of death? Oh, I didn't realize you knew him. What's your relation to Mateo? Her eyes scanned my face and offered no sense of recognition. I opened the fridge and grabbed the most indulgently flavored creamer. None that mattered, I told her. Ay, niña, voy a rezar por ti. She shook her head at me and turned away, cartwheels squealing along. That night, I stood at the spot he died and poured out the entire bottle of creamer, Santana blasting from my stereo. I went to the gun safe, turned the dial's new code, and grabbed a bag I hadn't unpacked in my 5 years of living here. Fuck it. I unzipped it right there and pulled out the vial and needle. I stripped down to my boxers and did a quick sign of the cross. I hated needles. Today I am a man, I proclaimed as I jabbed it in. My father was dead, and I was taking my first dose of tea in 5 years in front of his gun safe. Me siento tejano or something like that. I zipped the bag and put it back before closing the safe behind me. As soon as I flipped the light switch off while leaving the room, I heard the safe's dial spinning faster and faster like it might fly off the safe. I didn't want to turn to look. I was positive the correct numbers were being hit. I saw in the darkness of the doorway, or maybe the darkness of my mind, my own hand turning the dial, but hairier, bigger. I could almost hear my dad's throat clear, and I thought I heard him cough until I realized it was me. Clearly, I needed more sleep in those days, the early days of my dad's hauntings. Thank you. Um, so I am, as you could probably tell from my bio, a poet to my core. So reading fiction is a very new and exciting thing for me. So just to kind of give a little, I guess, lay out what we're gonna be doing for the rest of my time with y'all. I'm just gonna talk a little bit about my writing journey thus far. We have a quick little writing exercise, and then yeah, Dee and I, or Profe Garcia, my bad, we'll have a conversation about yeah, writing, genre, all those things, and then I'd love to answer any questions y'all have. So just like write them down somewhere because I want to get to anything y'all want to talk about. So before turning it over to y'all and the writing exercise, just a little more context about my writing journey. I feel like I began writing from a really young age just because I used to journal a lot, mostly just about like whatever was happening in my family's living room to the point where my siblings would be like, "Oh, don't say anything around them." Like they're gonna write it down and pull it up as receipts like weeks later, and you don't even remember saying it. So now look where that's gotten me. I think that was a good habit. But yeah, I just love observing the world around me. I love reading all genres, even when I used to only write poetry. So yeah, poetry just was one of the earliest ways I could express myself and make sense of the world. But I mostly just kept it to myself, wrote it for myself until I was in college and found out like, oh, some people are like poets for real, like in real life. And that was very exciting to me that it wasn't just like Emily Dickinson 100 something years ago. Um, so in college, I changed my major to creative writing, and just was like so hungry for learning more and more about contemporary poets, especially Texan poets. There's such a thriving literary scene here. Um, and then I started writing a little bit of nonfiction and dove more into it during my MFA. I moved to San Marcos, where I live now, for my MFA. Um, and my MFA was in poetry, but I was able to edit nonfiction for our lit mag, and took a class on nonfiction. And it was just becoming really fascinating to me to kind of decide what form my writing needed to take. So something I'm sure we'll talk about later is kind of that like form and function thing. Like what medium, and I'm sure this is more so true with people who are skilled in like visual mediums, what medium is the right way to like express the truth you're trying to tell or the story you're trying to tell. Um, so that being said, I never, ever, ever thought I would write fiction, let alone try to tackle an entire novel. I somehow got away with 7 years of creative writing school, not ever taking a fiction class. But last spring, I had this idea for a novel when I was back in South Texas, and I was like, oh, this would be such a good novel. I can't write it. I need someone to write it because I want the story to exist so badly. I told my friends about it and they were like, you have to write this. So I finally got over that fear, I think is what it was, and just started writing. Um, and yeah, it's been a really fascinating learning experience and very freeing in a way since I don't have that like formal education in fiction. Like, what is plot? I'm learning it as I do it. Um, yeah, so there's just a lot of things about it that feel very freeing. Whereas poetry is freeing in other ways. I'm sure we will get into the weeds of that later, but yeah, basically it all comes down to form and function for me. And with this story in particular, there are some elements of it, of course, informed by my life and my family, but a lot of it isn't, and I think that's what feels very freeing about it. But yeah, I see that. Oh, that is a great question. I Do you think, profe, I should tackle questions as they come or wait till Q&A time? You are muted also.
Awesome. Thank you for letting me know. Yeah, let's wait for questions till the end. That's a good question, but yeah, I agree. I want to know too. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I love that question. I mean, feel free to put them in the chat and we can just like
Mhm.
scroll up to them. But yeah, that's about me. I'm happy to talk about any of that when we move into Q&A. Um, But yeah, I think now we can move into the writing exercise I've prepared for us, if that sounds good. Okay,
So
cool.
excited.
Yes, me too. I'm also going to be writing during this.
Me too.
So, I know this is a fiction class and there's also some visitors to the class, but please like feel free to follow wherever your artistic brain is taking you, like any genre or form. So the prompt is, and I can put this in the chat, find an image and follow it, and we'll do it for about 10 minutes. I know that sounds kind of vague, but um for example, this is a very basic one, take it or leave it. A bird, right? Just think about it, ponder it. Where does that image take you? To the bird's nest, something the bird represents? Is it someone's pet bird in a story you're currently working on? Is it like an informational, these can be kind of fun too, like essay about birds or like birds in your hometown, things like that. So just like really just follow the image and let that dictate where your writing goes. Um, the prompt we should take questions on right now if anyone has a question before getting started on that.
No questions, I think.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so I want to say until 6:03. Can
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I
Yeah.
will turn my camera off so I'm not staring at y'all writing, but
Mhm.
yeah,
How did your writing exercise go, SG?
it was it was good. I'm not gonna lie.
Mhm.
I felt like I was stalling on the same image, but
In a
I
good way?
yeah, I was gonna say, but I
Mhm.
feel like when that happens, that's kind of a sign.
Mhm.
Which is part of why I wanted to subject everyone to this exercise. When you're circling back to the same thing, I kind of feel like, oh, maybe we should listen to that. Like, what is it
Mhm.
trying to tell you? Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, how did yours go?
I want to say mine went the same, especially since I was like forced to like look at this one image in one certain way. I looked at an object instead. And I kind of just went with it, and I was like, oh, I have a lot of feelings towards this object that I know about.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
amazing.
Yeah.
Does anyone want to share in the chat how it went? Like, you don't need to necessarily say, like, here's what I wrote, but like, was it good? Was it bad? Was it enlightening?
Answers in the chat. Answers in the chat.
Nos-
Nostalgic. Oh
Nice.
yeah. We love to see it. We love a good nostalgia moment.
Mm.
Um, well, some more good after finished early because ran out of room to write. Nice. That's always a good sign too. Having a lot to say, especially if it's one image. Um, while we get some more answers in, I'm gonna go ahead and prepare my questions for you because I want to ask you some questions myself. Um, uh, Very interesting process. The idea was there, but it needed more time for sure. Wrote a fun little fantasy romance excerpt to story in my whip list for one day into a full novel. Nice, as it should, as you should. Oh yeah. Um, awesome. So, SG, I'm your biggest fan in so many ways. And I just think it's so cool that you're able to like flex your creative muscles in so many different ways in so many different genres. I recently told you that I recently started venturing into poetry. Professor Rogers, I have so much to talk to you about poetry now. I have drafts. I have drafts. Um, and it amazes me how you are able to go to and fro and back again between these different mediums of creative writing, you know? So my first question has to do with working across genres. You've moved between poetry, nonfiction, and now fiction with your upcoming book. Uh, so, what have you gained from working across genres, and how does each form feed your creative process or challenge you in new ways?
Mhm. Hmm. That's a great question.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, thank you. I feel like it kind of helps with, well, I see someone in the chat said, I'm forever revising the same 10 projects. I feel that. And I honestly think, for me personally, I know everyone's brain creativity works differently, but I think kind of having different projects helps me not like stall out, if that makes sense. Like
Mhm.
if I'm feeling poetry especially, and I really hated figuring this out. I think the best revision tool for poetry is time. Like you just really have to let it simmer. I am very impatient. So when the poetry is simmering, it's like, okay, maybe it's essay time. and vice versa. So that's what I was doing with
Mhm.
poetry and nonfiction for a while. I love reading. Like that's my favorite thing to do. And I've always loved reading like across genres. So I just feel like um being so immersed in like literature, it's kind of like that was I was tracing a thought somewhere with that.
We'll get it back. We'll get it back. We'll get it back.
We'll get it back. We'll pull it back. I feel like that just I don't know, just kind of showed me what each genre has to offer. So it's like, oh, I want to try this, or oh, this is inspiring me. So I think, yeah, I really don't think anyone's writing would be anywhere without all the writing that came before it, you know?
Mhm.
Like literary tradition is really big, even when we don't see it. Um, so yeah, I really think a lot of the stuff I've written has come to be because of other writers who have done it before me. So I do want to touch on each genre kind of specifically, just so we're like really getting into the weeds here. Poetry for sure just feels like home for me, like just something about like lyrical, concise language just really does something, or like line breaks, being the big thing that sets poetry apart from prose. Of course, this is just my blanket caveat for the rest of the conversation. Every rule will be broken and can be broken in all these different genres, and I am often a breaker of these rules. Like, yes, there's prose poetry, etc. But yeah, the line break is really what sets it apart, and that's one of my favorite things. So when I first started writing poetry, it's because I was like journaling about my little like teenage feelings, and then was like, this would be a cool line break here and here. So yeah, that's something that is really fun for me in poetry. Nonfiction, I feel like is such a commitment. And I feel like there is a layer of like not layer, like a level of truth that you need to be comfortable with. Like there was a moment in a nonfiction class I took in undergrad that was so embarrassing for me, but I think in a good way because now I think about it when I'm writing nonfiction. I wrote an essay about going to New Mexico on some trip with like a student org, and there was someone that I ended up dating that was like on the trip. I did not mention this in the essay. Everyone in the workshop was like, "You have feelings for this person. Why didn't you write it?" And the professor is like, "We can tell when the author's not being like truthful in nonfiction." And it was very, very embarrassing. But now, years and years later, I'm like, okay, they were right. I'm taking the heart. So yeah, truth is the big thing for nonfiction. But then it's also like your truth versus like, I don't know, actually fact checking things. But yeah, and then to touch on fiction, which again, I'm still like in a learning phase, which has been so fun. Um, it's just fun to make things up. I normally don't do that. Like obviously nonfiction, you're not making things up. I know some people write like speculative or like fantasy poetry. I don't really do that. I don't really do persona poetry. So just like embodying someone who is entirely made up, and I'm like, oh, I can like have this character walk across a room. That's cool. That's not really how it feels like in poetry. So,
You
yeah.
have the control in your hand, basically.
Yes, it's
Yeah.
like a Sims game. It's awesome. I get it now,
The
fiction.
Sims game. Sims mentioned in class. That's what I'm talking about. And then all of a sudden we all have the little diamond on our heads. So my next question. In your work, I'm upset, and we've been talking about this in my class as well, how place has a huge impact on the narrative, on the speaker, on most things, and how setting kind of speaks to all that. And I'm obsessed. And James mentioned this earlier in the chat, how your work just feels so Texas, so Tejas as hell. You know what I mean? So I really want to ask you, much of your work is grounded in a strong sense of place. Last Stop, a lot of it. Good Grief, a lot of it. This upcoming project. How does setting help you tap into those deeper truths you were talking about, either personal or communal? And how does writing, I'm sorry, what does writing from what you know mean to you, and how do you stretch it beyond that?
Oh, okay. I love that last part.
Mm.
Yeah, and I saw that comment earlier too. Thank you for that. I am very Texan. I've lived in a few different places across the state my whole life. And this is such a Texan thing to say. I'm really obsessed with it because it's so like in your face. And that's something when I was younger, maybe many of us can relate to this, that you don't notice until you go somewhere else and you're like, whoa, we really are like that. Um, which, for better and for worse, I think it's a good thing to be invested in where you live and your community and stuff like that. So that's part of what I try to like portray with the like writing, what I know. It's just really important to me, especially my family is uh Tejano, like Mexican American, like some parts of my family have been here probably since it was, not Texas. So there's a lot of history there. There's also a lot of history that's not really taught or kind of lost to time. So I don't know, writing. Okay, wait, there's something in the chat that, yeah. Like I have a friend in Boston who I visited a couple times. It's funny you mentioned that. And I was there for a writing conference and people just like kind of make these assumptions about you, especially when you're like a queer or trans person. They're like, "Whoa, how do you survive out there?" And I understand where that's coming from, but at the same time it's like this is my home. Like I live here and I like my home, for better for worse. Um so yeah, I feel like it's so important for me to be writing about Texas for that reason, just to show like, hey, we're here too. Like this is also our home. Like my family's been here who knows how long. Like I don't know. Yeah. And then there was something in your question about like, ooh, can you repeat the first part of it? There's
Yeah,
some
what does writing from what you know mean to you, and how do you stretch beyond that?
right. Yeah, okay. So in my poetry, I write sometimes about Texas. Presently, some history I've learned, all of that. And a lot of what I'm sharing that's like place-based is kind of things I've just gained from living here. Like all of us, we write from where we're from. Or things that I've learned like intergenerational knowledge about stuff. So a big change with the novel is that I'm actually doing some research like into South Texas. There's not a ton of like literature or history about
Mhm.
this particular like area. And yeah, it's been really interesting to compare like what I have learned from my family to like what history is saying, how it overlaps. Randomly the other day, my partner was telling me about how there was like this really radical like socialist holdout in like the Alice, Texas area, which not a ton of people even know where that is. But yeah, back a
Mhm.
100 years ago, it was like super, super radical stuff happening there. And that's not really represented anywhere. Like I had no idea, and my family's from that area. Um, so yeah. I don't know. Do you do you have more thoughts on any of that?
Um, yeah, since I'm from Laredo, I guess a different sector of Texas. I definitely think my work is definitely informed by that experience tenfold. Especially right now since I'm focusing on nonfiction, it's heavy in research, and my hometown's gonna get sick of me at one point. I can't wait. But until then, I'm eventually also gonna branch out and study like the DJ map of Texas is my next project as well. So like place is gonna be like an important factor of something I'm gonna be constantly thinking about for a long time. Especially since that's the Hano writers, it's kind of our thing, you know? Um, yeah. So my next question, and something I'm kind of obsessed with as well, is kind of like the business side of being a writer, and putting yourself out there. And SG, I don't know if you noticed, but you're not on social media. And I'm obsessed that you're not on social media because I know a lot of writers worry about their online presence, numbers, interactions, engagements, and stuff like that. And maybe some of us have been having that question as well. So I'm wondering, can you talk about how you've managed to stay connected, visible, and creatively fueled without constant digital engagement? And what advice do you have for emerging writers who feel the pressure to be visible online to be taken seriously?
Mm-hmm. Okay. There are Whew, yeah, I have lots of thoughts on this. Yeah, it's actually very hard. Like, I'm not gonna lie and be like, oh, it's so easy to just delete all your socials and still like make money as a writer,
Mm,
right? I also am always, when I do stuff like this, very upfront that this is not my full-time job. I have a day job as a copywriter. So I'm very grateful that I get to write still for a living, but it's a different kind of writing than like this novel or my poetry. Yeah, so I did have social media when I've always just been very adverse to it. But when I started grad school, I was told like you need to be on Twitter. So I was. And then shortly after grad school, I deleted my account because I just couldn't, it was not good for my brain. It was not good for my art. So I will say it's not like I'm starting like from scratch without that. But when I deleted my Twitter in like 2022, I made a Substack newsletter. It's on a little bit of a hiatus right now, but I was like, I want to create something that's not so much like forcing you to be on the timeline of just like the doom scrolling, um and just like kind of highlight things that I'm reading in online lit mags or like things that are open for submissions and things like that. So just kind of like creating a space that I could curate that doesn't have any of that nonsense and has some of the nonsense I do like to talk about, like what random TV shows I'm watching, stuff like that.
mm,
But I will say something that I really, I guess that supplements that is just engaging in poetry and literature, like in my community, like in San Marcos, there is like the smallest towns, I guarantee, like if you just find the people, there are people there wanting to engage with art and stuff like that. I do think I'm in a like uniquely like artsy spot in San Marcos, I'm not gonna lie, but the library has a poetry zine, they do readings, they do poetry workshops at the library. Infrarealista Review sometimes has like these open mics at a coffee shop nearby. So just like really, I think finding the in real life places that are doing stuff so important. I know our yeah, in Austin, tons of bookstores with tons of readings with authors from all over the place coming. So really just like putting yourself out there, and not only that, and this is the very hard part, but like talking to people while you're there. The reason Profe Garcia and I even know each other is because I was going to these Infrarealista open mics every month. Like, here I am again. We be friends. And yeah, so just like making connections with people and other artists is just so important. I know the screen just it exhausts me, and yeah, I don't know. I really think it helps me to kind of be able to, and again, not everyone can do this, but be able to relish in the art without having to worry so much about like the commerce side of it. While I do, enjoy that aspect too, I do need that aspect too. It's nice to kind of have a bit of a barrier.
for sure. Oh yeah. So I'm gonna skip on over to my last question because we can have more time for Q&A. Because I really want to know, and I think you're also a master at this because you always find ways to be creative. And right now we're in a crowd of my students in the beginning creative writing class, and also a sea of other students I'm pretty sure who are from other beginning creative writing classes. And I'm pretty sure right now it's the end of the semester. Some of them are graduating after this, so I'm pretty sure maybe they have this question as well. For student writers who are just getting started, especially those nearing the end of the class, like the one we're in today, what are some options or habits you'd recommend for continuing to grow their craft? How do we stay in it? You know what I mean? How do we stay in it? Especially when we're no longer in a formal writing space like this one.
That is a really great question. And it reminds me of something I meant to say with the earlier question.
Mm,
Yeah, so one thing, just because you're not in a class doesn't mean you can't join another one, right? Whether it be at ACC or there's a lot of literary organizations that have workshops. where you're just dropped into this cohort with like 10 other people and then you come out with like 10 new poetry friends. So workshops like the Tin House Writing Workshop, Roots Wounds Words were both very crucial to me in my writing career. Finding someone, like if you are in a class right now and there's someone that like you feel like y'all like really like vibe or like give each other good feedback, stay in touch with that person. Even if you're not like formally workshopping or something, just like maybe every week you're emailing like here's what I wrote.
Start a
Or
zine.
yeah, start a zine. Everyone should start
Mhm.
a zine. I am a firm believer in that. Yeah, pay attention to the world. I don't know. I think journaling is a really big, like, even if you never ever show it to anyone. I really liked what Professor Rogers was saying earlier when we were doing the writing of like just let yourself free write, like don't correct yourself. That can be so helpful, even if you're not like working towards a specific project. You're just like, I'm just gonna journal. It really opens things up. And then I think the last thing I will say about this is um it sounds counterintuitive, but trust me, it's okay to take breaks. Like I know there are going to be some writers who wake up 5 a.m., they write their morning pages. That's amazing. That is not me. I cannot write every day. Um I mean I do for my work, but yeah, writing like that every day, I don't know. I feel like if I set a super high standard for myself, it just kind of sucks when you don't meet that standard. And I did finishing my MFA. I went straight from undergrad to MFA. I really struggled when I graduated with feeling burnt out and then feeling like I wasn't doing enough because I was used to this like really ridiculous workload.
Mm,
Worth it for sure, but yeah. So really just being honest with yourself and what's good for your art might not be the same thing that's good for, other people's art and their process.
for sure. Thank you so much for answering my questions. I found all the answers I want, and then some. So let's start with our Q&A, and I'm going to start from the top because we've been having some questions bubbling, which I'm happy to see. I'm going to start with Ray's question. How/why did you decide to do a full novel rather than a series of connected poems?
That's a great question. Yeah, so there are some parts in the book that have some poems. You got me there. But I did feel like it was a novel because it just needed I don't know, I guess like the exposition that prose allows. Like I know I keep talking about like, oh, I don't write fiction, but I love reading novels. Don't tell any poets out there, but novels are my favorite thing to read. So I just kind of like knew I had like a gut instinct of like this idea is a novel. I'm not going to be the one to write it though. So when I did start writing it, I couldn't help but put some like poetry elements into there. Um but yeah, so I guess honestly, gut instinct is
Good.
why I decided it was a novel. I hope that's a sufficient answer, Aaron.
Yeah, follow your gut, especially when you're a writer.
Yeah.
The next question is also from Aaron Ray. Do you find your fiction paragraphs are on average shorter than the norm?
Um My paragraphs, not so much. The chapters, absolutely. I am also right now, I'm in the first draft and this is something nonfiction taught me actually that I was gonna say earlier to one of the questions. Yeah, I am a firm believer in like just write the first draft, even if it's bad, and then you can go back. So I know there's some scenes that need to be a little longer. But also at the same time, I do like reading the occasional, like really thin novel. Like there's a poet, Billy Ray Belcourt, who has at least one novel. He might have a second one now, but his novel's very like short, and I love like a thin novel that you can just kind of breeze through. But yeah, nonfiction especially, I learned I needed to write a draft to find where the end point was. So that's how I've been tackling my fiction paragraphs as well.
Nice. Next question is from Brianne. Sorry, mine is sort of long. It's okay. Can you pick just one if you want? Are you an independent writer? Also, do you have any advice for independent writers who want to publish their work themselves? Any advice for the publishing process or gaining attention for a novel, especially for beginners who are writing their first novel slash piece of work? Amazing question.
Yeah. This is a great question. So I will answer all of them. Because I feel like this is stuff that can be hard to get the answer like from Googling, and everyone's journey is different. Yes, I am an independent writer. I have not tried to find an agent or anything like that. A lot of those workshops, like I mentioned, like Tin House, if you get in, they will have like panels about like how to get an agent, blah blah blah. So I've been to a lot of those panels. I just haven't felt like it's right for me in my life right now. So I have a lot more insight on the poetry stuff than getting anything else published, honestly. So my debut poetry book is coming out in January, and I submitted it to just open calls from presses, a lot of independent presses. That's how they choose what to publish. Whereas like the big ones like Penguin, all the other big ones, they take like an agent has to submit it for you. Um, I very much want to know who I'm working with, all of that. I also don't really, I don't know, I don't really see my work in the big five world, so I'm not the best to answer that kind of question. But yeah, just find presses that you like what they put out. You like fit with their their mission, all of that, and then just shoot your shot when they're open for submissions. Definitely like at least get a feel for what they publish though. Like Sundress, who's publishing my poetry book, I have loved so many of their poetry collections, and I've done some workshops with them. I did a residency with them. So I like really know these people, so I was so happy when they picked up my book. But yeah, let me see the rest of this question. Any advice? Want to publish their work themselves? Yeah, there's websites like Duotrope or Chill Subs or Submission Grinder that will like tell you who's open for reading periods and stuff like that. Um, Something I did early on too was just like seeing what authors I liked, what they were doing, or what they were doing before they were with the big five, right? Like Gabino Iglesias, I love his work, and that was a big inspiration for me to start writing fiction too. I just he wasn't always publishing with these big publishers, and he's local too. So um his trajectory is a really interesting one to study. But yeah, getting attention for a novel, put yourself out there, come up with a cool marketing plan, uh, really like going to events and stuff like that, putting together events like at local bookstores. I don't know, just really putting yourself out there, I think is huge. Yeah, I hope that was, I feel like I spent a long time talking on that one. That was sufficient.
Very good. All great questions.
Mhm.
The next question, I almost said the next song for some reason, is from Haley. How do you get past writer's block, or what do you do if you have an idea for a story but don't know where to begin?
That's such a good question. Whew, I'm kind of at the point where I don't force it, but sometimes I do have to write like creatively for my day job sometimes. Honestly, I just go outside and then hope some inspiration hits me. For poetry especially, and I'm sure this would work for a story too, sometimes I just write the same line over and over again, and then hopefully something, you know, um, comes up to follow it up. But if I'm facing like longer term writer's block, I just read, and then something eventually will like inspire me. But yeah, great question though. I know that's
Yes.
really
Yeah, our time is running a little short, so I'm gonna skip around. Thank you for all these questions. I'm gonna go to one that has a reaction on it, so I feel like that's important. From Athena, do you oftentimes find yourself fighting for your creative voice when speaking to publishers? Great question.
that's yeah, that is a really good question. Thankfully not with publishers, and I think that's because I had to learn how to do that earlier in my journey. So I write, if y'all couldn't tell, there's some Spanish sprinkled in there because it's how my brain works. That's how I was raised, and I do think things like that, you really do have to kind of stand your ground. Like Personally, I don't like to italicize the Spanish because that just doesn't feel right to me. And that has been the subject of some like tense conversations in my past. Honestly, I just think of like, who am I writing for? Am I writing for the person that wants to force me to do whatever to my language I don't want to do? Or am I writing for the person that is going to read it and be like, oh, like, I feel at home reading this?
Nice. All right, one more question. I'm trying to pick one out from the crowd. Um, let's go with, let's see. I like, okay, let's do it this one because I like the question about authenticity. How much, oh, from James. How much research do you find you need to do to make your writing feel authentic? Is it a better option to write what you know, setting characters, etc., or to write things foreign or alien to
Oh, that's such a good one.
you?
Ooh, I so the thing that I am kind of doing research on too is that the character in my book is a little older than I am. So I'm like, did this thing exist in 1990 or whatever? So things like that. Yeah, I don't know. I really think that there's nothing wrong with going out of your comfort zone or like going out of what is you know, what is familiar to you?
Mhm.
That's such a good question. I don't even know if I have the answer to that. I really just think if it feels like it's serving the story, then you're probably on the right track. Or
Mhm.
there's also like, I don't know, let's say you want to write about like a culture or something that you don't know. There are sensitivity readers out there that will read it and be like, yeah, here's my perspective as like XYZ. Um, I'm also, I'm trans in 2025. That was very different in the 90s, and I don't know a ton about that. So that's something else that I am learning about as I write. So yeah, that does in a way, even though that is like literally my identity, that is kind of foreign to me. So I'm just trying to make sure I am doing it justice by like, I don't know, making sure I'm not lying about things or like making things up. I don't know. That's a really good
We're
question.
uncovering our history.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I think that's the note we'll end on. Oh, one more question. It's a great question. Can you repeat the name of your novel again? So we can keep an eye out for it.
Yes, yes, yes. Let me put it in the chat.
And which
Um,
printing press?
oh yes, with with Plancha Press,
Ooh.
amazing Central Texas literary organization that I've had the
Mhm.
pleasure of working with for a few years now.
I've heard of them. Yeah. So, uh, I think that ends it for today. Thank you all so much for coming. Thank you, SG, for being here and joining us in my little classroom. For those of you still in class, you are still in class. I will see you in the others room. But as for the rest of y'all, thank you so much for being here. For our last Limestone conversation of the semester. What a great way to go out for spring 2025. So thank you so much for being here, y'all. SG, always a pleasure. I will see you soon.